Thank you. Hi, I'm Ryan Sheldrake. I want to talk about building security into a DevOps pipeline. So, first of all, let's make sure the technology works, maybe, the clicker. Nope. Why should you listen to the guy that flies in from London? Always start here, yeah? I used to move a lot of money around the UK. Every automated payment, every ATM transaction, I own the delivery pipeline for that software, from idea to build, to release, to run, to decommission. About 4 or 5 years ago, I started to get interested in security, and my ops director, I kind of had a dotted line into the ops and dev director, basically set me an objective of do not be hacked, full stop. How do you do this, yeah? First of all, I didn't know what was in the software that I'd inherited. The software had been around for a number of years. Many people had worked on that, many teams, people leaving the organization, etc. Oh, it does work now. Fantastic. So what I want to do is talk about how we effectively manage open source vulnerabilities and license obligations as part of a DevOps delivery. Let me just start this. And the main thing about this for me is to empower development. Any security folks in the room? Apologies if I offend you in any way. Who remembers this? Or who still does this? Gantt charts? 1 or 2, good. Thou shalt not pass. The Friday before the Saturday night release. Anybody still doing this? Yeah, wait until the last week or even the last hour before release. Security jumps out. You cannot go live. Yeah, this used to happen to me a long time ago, but it definitely happened to me more than once. Generally, you wait all the way until the end. Look at the number of days up there that we wait and wait and wait, and then we finally check some security right at the very, very end. We don't want to do this anymore. DevOps is about feedback. So why DevOps? These are not my ideas or slides, really, but to apply effort anywhere apart from at the constraint is pointless. Until you release, you make no money. If you never release, which sadly I've seen many startups do, try to build that platinum, better and better and better and better application, never put it live, guess what? You go bankrupt. People. People is really important. Chris was talking about the cultural challenges to transform from waterfall, agile into DevOps. I think the morale side of things is really important to capture. And Chris mentioned about the top-down, the bottom-up, removing the middle. A very good friend of mine, Helen Beale, has done some research to say that 16% of the team won't make it. Yeah, it's a really tough journey to take, but well worth it if you actually commit. We've all heard of the 3 ways, yeah? Yeah, hands? Yeah, nods? Good. So, flow, feedback, and keep learning. I firmly believe that the point that you stop learning is the point that you basically start dying and will leave the organization in a finite amount of time. You have to keep learning all of the time. But not only that, let's do security as we introduce that flow. It's all about getting to release, yeah? And then build it in as those feedback cycles as part of the delivery pipeline. Don't wait until the end. And then, of course, keep learning about security. Security changes all the time. There are new disclosures, new threats, new horrible licenses even. Some are funny, some are not so funny in licensing. So do all of the DevOps stuff, but build security in. Make sure you're doing it just as a day-to-day effort. Start changing objectives to align the stability and control of operations to the creativity of developers. There is a lot more press about this. Anybody use Atlassian tools? There's got to be more hands on that one. Yeah, there we go. Did you have to reset your HipChat password in March? You did, because they forced a global password reset after it was exploited via Struts 2. I too had to change my password, which is a bit annoying, but at least they patched it very quickly. Anybody seen the chap driving the Tesla around the car park in Japan? Yeah, it's funny, yeah? It's not if it was on the highway, though. Yeah? Suddenly a car veers off or whatever else. So, Struts 2, as I say, went vulnerable in March. It's almost a sport to hack Struts 2. Kudos passes. People even argue about who created the Metasploit within the second. There was a chap from, I believe it was Egypt, and he was very upset that somebody else had claimed his hack. So it's actually a sport now. Equifax was breached by this. The first disclosure was in September, I believe. They said they started to get breached in July. When the CIO went to court, it actually turns out that they started to lose data 2 days after the disclosure, so way back in March, hence losing 143 million customer records. GDPR, the new Data Protection Act, they would have been liable in the region of $60 million fine for that particular one breach. Sadly, it was 100% preventable, but they didn't know what was in their software. Yeah, Chris mentioned about pulling Docker images from the hub, etc. But down at the component level, that's exactly the same. Just download random stuff from the internet to get that feature out. Is it safe? Has it got the right license? Are you obliged to give your source code away? All of these things just happen because of the ecosystem. It goes beyond profitability and business. We build technology into humans now. So, as I say, driving cars remotely, anybody that goes to InfoSec will see people putting the windows up and down, flashing the lights. My father's got an inbuilt defibrillator that dials home. What happens if somebody hacks that? And turn my father off. That's quite scary. I don't like this. I want whoever's embedding that software into that device, into my father or any other human being, to be as secure as possible. I found this out at the beginning of this year, and I actually think it's an underestimation. So the number of developers outnumber the number of security experts 100 to 1. I've worked for banks for most of my career, last 18 years, and I believe that that's at least half of that number. I think it's 250, maybe even 400 to 1, based on my own personal experience. But suffice to say, there are more devs than security experts. Change objectives. This doesn't happen one Monday morning. You don't come in and you don't say, right, developers, now you've got to be concerned with scalability and everything else. And you don't say to ops, hey, just throw anything live, it will be fine. This takes time to go through a journey, and you need to start to build in objectives, joint objectives. We did this back at the director level to start to blur the lines between those, never change anything, my service is available 99 point whatever ever time. Is that really a successful metric to base objectives on? No. We go to the light switch we expect it to be on. That doesn't mean to say that the power company is innovating and changing the world or anything like that. It's just an expected thing is high availability now. But also, what I started to do is build risk management into our sprints, our deliverables. So again, it kind of blurs the lines between the drivers, financially or otherwise, of operations. I was an op back in the Middle Ages, the time when Chris was talking about, and I've worked backwards towards being an architect and a part-time developer too. So I kind of have seen all of my objectives change over the years, and we're trying to make that collaboration, yeah? It's about working together. Communicate, be open, don't throw it over the wall. Born is DevSecOps. I'm not about to read all of this slide, but I think red and blue team exploitation is my favorite part of that slide, is to try and break something, try and hack something before somebody else does it. I've heard of Chaos Monkey and everything in Netflix. Shannon Leitz, another good friend of mine, he runs the red team. And basically, has got an awesome job. She's got a team that goes and hacks internally. Yeah, somebody's halfway through their sprint and they basically take the data out or something like that. Take the service out before it actually goes live. It's a really interesting job. You can find her on LinkedIn, of course. Is that surprising to anybody? No? You all know exactly what's in your software down to the component level? That's interesting. One of the biggest insurance companies in the world sat in front of our CEO, Wayne Jackson, and he said, we don't use open source software. Yeah, okay. It turns out that when we looked from Maven Central, Sonatype runs Maven Central, so if you develop in Java, you've downloaded from us. They were one of the biggest open source users in the world, which is rather embarrassing for that C-level person at that insurance company. So I get to travel a lot. Flew in from London last night, Tel Aviv last week, and so on, and I get to see a lot of people who are either completely unaware or kind of aware that they're using some stuff, and it's very rare that I actually meet anybody who truly understands what's fundamentally in the software. And that does vary per organization, but it's roundabout right. Some big numbers here. NPM overtook downloads, so JavaScript actually for the first time outnumbered the Java downloads from Maven Central, and yeah, you can just about see the font. It's 111 billion downloads just from those two repositories. So there's a heck of a lot of open source being consumed, either knowingly, unknowingly, or somewhere in between. PyPy, my favorite, 4.4 billion in 1 month. How many of those are good? How many of them have got vulnerabilities? Do we know? Why is it so difficult? OWASP A9. Do not use components with known vulnerabilities. Or simplified, don't use bad stuff. Yeah? It's a bit more complicated than that. So this is a laboratory application that I created, and in the top level there in the red box, you can see my manifest, my package.json, my pom.xml, my Swift, package.swift, whatever, yeah? Whatever I tell it. It brought a lot of friends with it, 23 others over 4 levels of abstraction, yeah? This is a really simple example. When you scale that, that's what a real application looks like. WebGoat, purposely vulnerable application used for security testing, that's what it looks like. Now imagine that going down the highway at 100 kilometers an hour as you're trying to change it. If you change that, does all of that layer change? Does some of it? How do you keep up to speed with this constant moving? And I really wish we had like a 3D or hologram type of thing, because clearly this is not doing it justice. It's a very complicated matter. If this was a JavaScript application, I would need a screen as big as Warsaw. I would. It's astounding. The amount of dependencies that are brought in because of repackaging is just phenomenal. I actually ran out of threads on my MacBook trying to do a tree of a very simple application. Like I say, we're the custodians, not really the owners, but the custodians of Maven Central. So we can look from the outside in of one of the biggest central repositories in the world. We've learned a lot about analyzing all of the metadata that's associated with all of those components. And yeah, this ball of kind of yeast-looking thing is a representation of Maven Central and the complexities of the dependencies within there. How are we doing for time? Oh, lots. Security, folks. Yeah, this is for real security-interested folks. Cryptography library. The CVSS scale goes from 0 to 10. It cannot go outside of those bounds. And it went bad in 2007. Now, that's an age ago, I know this. But I use it because it is a level 10, and it's actually really hard to find a level 10 security vulnerability. So, excuse me. How many times? So this was patched within a couple of weeks, by the way. Yeah? So disclosure, patch, move on, new version, that type of thing. How many times was it downloaded, say in 2015? Any guesses? 10? 20? 5.7 million. That's because it's brought in by all sorts of other things. OpenSAML is my favorite, single sign-on stuff. And it's brought in as a transitive that's way hidden down in that tree of horribleness that you've got to try and unpick so you can control what's in your applications. New components. I want somebody afterwards to come and tell me what happens at 5.5 years. I still don't know. That point of inflection there is when the amount of defects, vulnerabilities, and so on just seems to start to creep upwards. And also, projects die. So if there's a problem, where do you go? If anybody knows the reason what happens at 5.5 years, please, I'll be out there afterwards. Just over a third of organizations. I think this is from 25,000 organizations who participate in the software supply chain report that's published on a yearly basis, which is terrifying that 65% don't have meaningful visibility, control, or otherwise of what's in their software. 1 in 5 had a suspected breach. We will see this get to the press more and more. Equifax is quite a rare that they said it was that specific CV reference that caused the exit or early retirement of their CEO. Seems coincidental that he wanted to retire the week after he lost 143 million records of data. Just saying. Some other percentages here. 87% is bad of handlebars. So even if you just randomly selected, you're very likely to have brought at least some vulnerabilities into your JavaScript application. TDD. BDD, model-driven. We should really get to security supported. Again, removing that wall and that throw over, that blocker, that gate that's on the Friday before the Saturday that you go live. If you're building it into security supported development, it just becomes part of the delivery. It's a very old slide. You can see that it's in standard definition. 100 times. Gartner say it's 30 times more cost effective to fix back in design in the IDE. IBM say it's 100 times. It's easier, faster, safer, and cheaper to fix at the left part of the delivery lifecycle in development. Don't wait until it's in pre-prod or even worse in production to be able to fix security vulnerabilities. Traditional approach, delivery pipeline, yeah, hopefully familiar, is to basically stop the internet, fill a form out, wait a day, a week. There's a good story about this actually. A multinational bank I was implementing secure delivery into. I wrote some Python stuff for them, and we needed a couple of eggs. And I said, right, okay, we need this. And it wasn't anything out there, you know, it's like XML parser and stuff like that. And he said, yeah, we can do that. It'll take about 6 weeks to download this. What? Just astounding. So what we were trying to do is get that down to days or even seconds worth of due diligence being done. And then, like I say, wait weeks or months before even testing what would go live. Why? So a modern approach is check out the source code from Git, use a repository. We were talking about it earlier. Do you really want your business to be at the mercy of somebody deleting something from the internet and then you can no longer create your application? Or worse, emergency fix maybe based on an incident? You will have to proxy in from the internet if you've not already downloaded. Anybody heard of NPM Gate? Early 2016, yeah? One hand there. One chap had an argument, a discussion with the administrators of NPM and decided to delete a left pad. It was, I think it was about 7 or 9 lines of JavaScript code from NPM. It caused 72,000 dependency breakages. Yeah, that's quite an outcome from one deletion of 7 lines of JavaScript. So NPM suddenly changed the rules. You're not allowed to reissue at the same version now, which was amazing to me that they ever let that happen, because what's version 1? And then you which version 1? But they also don't allow end users to delete things from the repository now. Check in the source code and then go into central build. Jenkins, Bamboo, GoCD, there are lots of build tools out there. And then use this repository again for the single source of truth for deployment out. CI, been around for a long time, 10 plus years, and everybody strives towards this continuous deployment. Not all organizations will get there because there are restrictions. I could never have flowed software directly from a push into the core payments engine of the UK. No matter how much testing I did or said to my ops director, it'll be okay because I've done all the it was never going to happen. But I did get towards continuous delivery. So we can block bad stuff. Gartner and Forrester have recognized that having an open source firewall here to block things with bad licenses or vulnerabilities, attack vectors, why wait for that inbox, you know, that pile of papers, that form, or whatever it might be, 4 weeks? Why not automate the testing so it has to pass all of the criteria, the rules that you can set up, and then it only gets ingressed into development and Jenkins when all of those ticks, those passes, but this is sub 1 minute checking. Early feedback, my personal favorite. I part-time develop and I want to be able to check the characteristics, the security of the components as early as I can, even before I push, before it goes to Jenkins or Bamboo. Check before the commit is accepted and then enforce. Because what happens, anybody read about Avast, C-Clean? Somebody injected a vulnerability into their Jenkins server. Why it was facing the internet, I have no idea, but it was. And they signed this version as a release candidate after it had been injected into here. So you want to check throughout the delivery pipeline. Have nothing unknown. I try and get organizations over time and deliverables and projects, because if you're controlling what's coming in from the internet, you're making great decisions here, you're enforcing the quality here. If you've got something unknown, this person has had a bad day and gone to ryansamazingsoftware.com and downloaded a tainted version of the JDBC or something like that. Or even worse, like I say, somebody from external has injected into here. You want to get to the point where you have no unknown components in your software going towards production. You can enforce different rules as it goes towards your target environment. And monitor, because guess what? The version of struts that caused the Equifax breach and was amazing for about 8 weeks before it was exploited. So keep monitoring in an automated, scalable way, because if it goes bad, you want to have at least a fighting chance of not going to prison, or at least retiring. Devs in the room? Got to be a few development folks. Cool, bit of a pod over there, like it. This is a view that's extracted from a bill of materials report. And is it Struts? Oh yeah, it is. There we are. Struts has got a jaded history. But it's not the only component, and it's not a bad component. It's just the fact that a lot of people look at the source, because guess what? The source is open. So if you had this, would you really, really choose this version with a level 10 over here? You would probably be looking towards this end and see whether there is a less vulnerable version. There's not always a non-vulnerable version, or the license story is quite interesting. There's an airline in America. Excuse me. I get asked about auto-upgrading all the time. Yeah, why don't you just auto-upgrade to the latest and greatest? Because obviously the latest and greatest is the best. It really isn't. Never, ever, ever do this. The American airline did this. And iText PDF, very common component, they changed from an MIT license to an AGPL license, which basically means that they had to give their whole system away, their source code. And little did this line that's based in America know is that it puts an invisible watermark on whatever's printed by this component. So they, the publishers, the project of iText PDF, issued a cease and desist order, and they were unable to print boarding passes. That's a bit of a problem for an airline. So guess what? They had to pay a lot of money. I don't think it was ever actually disclosed, the number of millions, but it was quite a lot. And auto-upgrading could lead you into a catastrophic impact to your business. And that's just a license thing. There's also vulnerabilities in newer versions too. So you want to get information to be able to make the right choice, preferably within the IDE. IntelliJ, Eclipse, Visual Studio, whatever it is, you want to be able to make a valid choice of the best component. Where you've got red triangles, it shows you the bad versions. It enables you to meet the OWASP A9, do not use bad things. It will also show you here all of those transitive dependencies, that friend of a friend of a friend of a, oh, that's a really bad friend. So you can actually get a full picture of your application within the IDE before you even build it, before you go and break the build. Nobody wants to break the build, do they? You get the trophy, the hat, whatever you get for breaking the build. This enables you not to break the build. Keep a bill of materials. This is becoming more and more important. If you've ever shipped a product to the US, we used to sell payment systems to the US, you used to have to pass a full bill of materials of what was in that software. Hence, I used to be a customer of Sonatype before I started working for them. But it's becoming more prevalent in Europe too, especially licenses. You have to get a full extract of all of the license and obligations and ship that as part of the product. It seemed to be Belgium that I first saw that in, but definitely Germany, and it seems to be getting wider and wider. So you want to get a bill of materials for every single build there. You can break the build. So if you've got 118 criticals, do you really want to push this to production? No, you really don't. So you want to be able to break the build also if it doesn't meet the quality criteria that you can set within TFS, Jenkins, Bamboo, whichever build system you're using. This is more and more detail. Security is about precision and accuracy. So there are tools on the market, on the internet, that say there's some bad stuff over there. So what can you do? It's what kind of bad stuff? What's over there? Is it there or there? You need to be precise. So you want to get down to exactly the point version to only taint what is vulnerable. If you generalize, you inject a synthetic constraint, a fake constraint on your developers, and cost your company money, or delay going to market and possibly lose that opportunity, which could be bad for your business. So, make testing fun. Anybody doing hackathons and those type of things? DevPod kind of over there, that's good to see, I'm liking it. Lots and lots of tools are out there. Z-Attack Proxy, really good, Gauntlet. You want to try and gamify this to basically find the issue before somebody external does. Yeah, if you've not tested every angle of your software that you can think of, automate, hackathon, however you want to do it, somebody will find that on the internet. It'll either be a pre-baked script, or somebody will actually, and this is getting rarer, put some effort in to hack you. To be a hacker is really easy now. You go to GitHub, you get a Metasploit, and you find a target. If you knock on enough doors, one of the doors will open. Statistics. You can find every version of Struts2 that's out there by a very simple Google search. So you want this red and blue team, and you want to be able to analyze as much as possible. Using Kali in your hackathons? You've got to be. It's pre-baked, yeah? So, again, tools are out there to be able to do it. If somebody asked you where a component was across all of your applications, would that be a good day? It wasn't for me. I kind of went pale and had a slight sweat and started ringing people and emailing distribution lists, and people may have left the company. And it's really hard if you find maybe an issue in a penetration test, to say precisely where is that proprietary component across your applications. It used to take days for me to go and find out where things were. The patching window for Equifax was sub 48 hours. So by the time I found it, I'm already being exploited, losing data potentially, or my service has been taken offline in an extreme example. What we can do here is, because we precisely identify the components to a subpoint level, you can just click on this number 4 and it will tell you it's in 4 of your applications, but not in 996 others. Very precise, one click identifying where you've got risk. And then use it as a work-off list. Yeah? Certain applications will be more important to your business than others. Who cares about a code style checker, yeah? If it's your whole business, internet facing, you're going to put your effort there first. So you want to be able to build up a work-off list in an automated manner. Summing up, I think I'm quite early, which is rare for me. So we now understand why we've got vulnerabilities in software, hopefully. And if not, come and talk to me afterwards. I can talk about this all day. I do talk about this all day. Nearly every day, too. Use the best version. Not the newest, the best. So don't constrain yourself. If you don't distribute your product, who cares about that copyleft clause in that license? It's not applicable to you. But with context, security is all about context and use, and license obligations too, is choose the best version for that application that's part of your business. And then multiple points of feedback and control throughout delivery pipeline to ensure that you fix it as early as possible, but then you check that it was fixed as early as possible. Anybody attend this? Biggest virtual conference on earth? I think we were about 30,000 of us this time. If you're interested to learn more, there are lots of recordings available about CICD, security, all sorts of talks if you want to learn some more about it. And please join us next year. alldaydevops.com is a huge online conference. Lots of references and thanks. Clearly, I didn't do all of those infographics. It's time for some Q&A.
Okay, thank you so much. We have time for questions. Please raise your hand. Yeah, there's one in the back. Janusz is going to get that.
I've got a question about the security and stuff, because what you have described is more like actually accepting lesser evil. So the question is, isn't a problematic for small shops that, for example, they can afford to have a security team, and what would you suggest for them?
So yes, it is a problem, because one would assume that this small shop is wanting to be a larger shop at some point. So if you bake bad things in from the beginning and start to scale that, guess what? You amplify the problem. So you want to fix it as early as possible. So there are many tools out there. I've used multiple tools in this space. Sonotype do some, there are some on the internet. But go and look what's in your software. At the very least, understand the makeup at a very detailed level of what you're delivering. Because like I say, you start small, and then all of a sudden, things take off, and boom, you've just scaled it. And you're scaling potentially a problem.
Another question?
Hi. So I'm an infrastructure guy, and you presented on one of the slides that Sonotype can help you also when dealing with infrastructure. Am I right? So there was some...
Soon, I think, is the answer to that one. So at the moment, we traditionally come from a Java background. It's a very open thing. We know Maven Central. We own it. And then we've done NPM, NuGet Gallery, and so on. So it's been very much application focused so far. However, Docker and other containerization technologies are blurring the lines, let's say. So we're just ingesting at the moment, being completely honest in the room, all of the metadata to be able to allow us to look at OS level components. So that OpenSSL version or that type of flavor of component, it's on our roadmap.
So basically you're talking about Docker containers that may be scanned somehow on...
Yeah, as part of the CI delivery of Docker container, we will read the layers, if you've ever looked at the makeup of Docker containers, down to the application layer at the moment. We'll be bringing online what I call the OS layers, as we've just ingested and cleaned the data. That's one of the biggest problems that we face, is that there is a lot of noise on the internet. We scan every GitHub commit every day and then machine process and prioritize them. That takes a lot of effort to go and clean that, because you need clean data to be able to automate on, because again, you've got false positive or negative and you make 1,000 automated decisions, you've just made 1,000 bad decisions. So precise data that underpins our product is vital.
Okay, we have one more question here.
Yeah, okay. So you said to use the best software, but how to know what's best and how to get the team of developers to know what's best?
Great. So you've got to make it consumable as well as best, yeah? Because if you got to suddenly, all of your developers have got to go and retrain for 5 years to become a security expert, guess what? Your business has died by the time they've come back. Yeah, it's the truth. So you need to make it consumable. Talk to me afterwards. We abstract away the requirement to do that. That slider that I showed you with the various tainted versions and the safe versions makes it consumable. It also abstracts the detail away from the ecosystem. So not all security folks are JavaScript experts, and not all JavaScript experts are security folks. So what it does is it abstracts it away to make it consumable in the IDE, as part of the build, as part of an audit. We do a lot of audit stuff, One particular bank, they were spending 3 weeks in blocks to take a snapshot of their top 800 applications. I wrote something that leverages our data that took it down to about 15 minutes, because you can just take a snapshot at the precise level, and that's how they then pass their audit in a repeatable manner. Automation means repeatability for me, and I'm inherently lazy. Yeah, it's built into me to be lazy. I do things more than a couple of times, it's a candidate to automate right there.
Okay, one more.
Okay, hi. We've been talking about security at the application level or at the deliverable level, but with introducing approaches like infrastructure as code, but what you basically do is do software development for your infrastructure, right? Yep. So are there any automation tools or processes that would allow you to test the security of your infrastructure as code deliverables?
Yes. Are they amazing? No. I'm just giving you what I used to get a very large email every Monday morning telling me how bad my life was in the infrastructure world. Bear in mind I used to be an environment manager and stuff, and as an environment manager, everything in the world is your fault. Yeah, because it's always an environment problem. Always. I'd be a very rich person for every time somebody has said this without any proof or anything, yeah? So yes, there are infrastructure scanning tools. They don't offer the level of pragmatism, because it used to be, basically a problem statement. Yeah, and they used to drive me insane, these tools. It's like 26 pages of problems, Ryan. Brilliant, what do I do about this? Do I have time to do 26 pages of things before you send me the next email? Of course I don't. But I can talk to you outside about what that tool is and kind of how they've tried to evolve. I think they've still got a bit of a journey to go to actually guide the fix, because this is about fixing stuff, yeah? Who cares? You want to fix it and be the best that you can be. Grab me outside.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that we should leave all the other questions for our discussions.
I'll be around, so.
Yeah, okay. So thank you so much for your talk. Big applause.